My name is Father Joseph Mary Deane. I'm one of the Franciscan Friars of the Renewal, the CFRs, and I am living in Limerick, Ireland, in a housing estate called Moyras. And I grew up in an Irish-American Catholic household with the faith. When I got older, I started drifting from the religion of my parents and wanted something different for myself. I wanted, seeing the glamour and the glitz of TV and the life, the fast life and the money and everything, all the promises of the world. I walked away from my faith. And in some ways it was worse because I knew it was true. Even though I knew it was true, I just didn't care. I remember there was a certain point in my life where I just said, Jesus, nothing personal, but I want to do what I want to do. So I'm walking away from you. I wasn't really finding joy and pleasure in life and happiness. And so I thought maybe the world could offer it to me. And so for a while, I did. I experienced a lot of happiness, made a lot of friends, had a lot of happiness, had a lot of joy. Well, not joy, but it was pleasure, I'd say, and especially once I discovered alcohol and drugs, had a lot of girlfriends, and it seemed to be like, yeah, this is what I was looking for. But the more I entered into that lifestyle, the more just shallow I saw how it was, how fake, how empty it was. And little by little, I started drifting into anger, depression, addiction, and realizing it didn't really make me happy. And so just wanting to give God that opportunity to make me happy. After years of that kind of drinking deeply of everything the world had to offer, I'm like, if this is supposed to make me happy and fulfill me and I'm supposed to be full of joy, how come I'm sad? How come I'm depressed? How come I'm doing so many stupid things? How come I'm angry? And that kind of started the pathway to me thinking like maybe I should, approach the God of my youth, because it got to the point where I knew I was going to end up either dead or in prison because of life's choices. And I had a feeling I was going to go to hell if I died at that time because I had directly rejected God from my life, even though I knew the truth. But I didn't really trust that He could make me happy. So where the big initial kind of a conversion experience happened in my life with my father simply inviting me on a retreat. And it was, he knew I didn't want to go, had no desire to go, but knew that he would probably be rejected. But he asked me anyways. And I said yes, not because I wanted to go on to some retreat and to pray, but I said yes because my father asked me, and I know he was humbling himself to ask me. So I said, sure, I'll go away for the weekend on that retreat. And that's where I heard the voice of the Lord. Again, that's where I invited him into my heart and said, I'll take a chance. I'll do anything you want. Except I think I even said at the time, though, I said, I'll try anything except being a priest. I was like, I'll do anything but that. A lot of priests, they say, oh, I always knew I wanted to be a priest, or, always felt the calling since I was a child. I never felt the calling. I never wanted to be a priest. And it just, partly because so many of the priests, growing up seemed kind of miserable. So I was like, well, this seems like a miserable life. But there's no reason for a priest to be miserable if he's living his life the way he should be. It's so fulfilling. And it's so, if he has a real life of prayer and faith, it's the best life in the world. At the time, I said, I'll do anything except be a priest. But then eventually, soon after that, I started as a joke. I made a joke about being a priest because I thought it'd be funny. And as soon as I said the joke, it was like the Holy Spirit was like, yes, because I kept asking God, like, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? I've experienced, I felt your presence. I've experienced your love. I went back to my first confession and 15 years or whatever. And it was huge. I couldn't even barely remember what confession was. But I went in there and, the next thing you know, I thought I'd be in and out. But I was in there for like over an hour and I was just weeping. And it felt like weights were being lifted off of me. And I knew I was changed at that moment, that something had happened. And I really fell in love with the sacrament of reconciliation at that moment, because I said, wow, this is like nothing else I've ever experienced, this freedom. And I think maybe that's where a thought came into my mind, like it'd be great to be able to do that for other people. And so when I asked the Lord, what do you want? And I had said no to the priesthood, but then when I made a joke about it, I knew it was what he was asking me to do. And I was like, me as a priest, that's crazy, But I couldn't shake it. That's why a vocation is a call. It's God calling to our hearts. It's not just an idea you come up with or something you figure out. It's a calling. And it's not something I ever would have wanted myself or sought for myself. But I knew he was giving me the invitation. I didn't have to accept it, but I knew he was giving it to me. And I said, well, I did say I would trust you. So, okay, I'm gonna give you a chance. Here we go. What do you want? What do you want me to do? I said, I'm gonna trust you. So I said, I'll give this a try, Lord. I'll try this whole priesthood thing. But thinking like, this is not gonna work. And I won't be happy doing this. And so many of my friends from like high school and university were like, are you even allowed to be a priest? And I was like, I think so. Like, do they know who you are? I'm like, they've heard rumors. They know about your past life. Like, yeah, without the gory details, but yeah, they, and they're still gonna let you be a priest. And I said, I think so. And they took a chance on me. And yeah, I entered into it. And honestly, it was rough because of my past, because of so many burdens, because of just years of sin and addiction. And it wasn't easy, but the Lord was with me every step of the way. And I entered into it, and it was tough. I remember I said to the Lord at one point, I said, I know I'm gonna just get angry and just want to leave on a regular basis. But I believe you're calling me to this. So I make you this promise, Jesus. I will stay until you ask me to leave. I'm not going to leave just because I want to leave. And I think that's a good thing for people to do in life in general, is to be more, all right, Lord, are you asking me to leave? Or are you asking me to do this? Instead of just having emotional responses. Well, I'm tired of this. I don't want this, And so every time I was angry and I'm like, I'm done with this, I'd stop and say, do I feel like Jesus is asking me to leave religious life? So, no, not really. And I was like, all right, I made a promise. I'm going to keep going. And it became the thing where I couldn't imagine doing anything else. It just became the thing that was just so beautiful, it was so fulfilling. And I was thinking to myself, how can I ever be fulfilled being a priest and a religious and obedience and communal life and vows of poverty and chastity and obedience? None of those appealed to me. But in letting everything go, God gave me so much. Because I always had a real burning desire in my heart for marriage and for family. And it was hard to let go of that. But I don't regret it at all. I know I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And I have such a massive family now, which I wouldn't have otherwise. And so it's been such gift. Everything that we sacrifice and give to the Lord, He gives us so much more in return.